Good morning. I'm Haritina Mogoshanu from the New Zealand Astrobiology Network. And if you're wondering what astrobiology is this amazing umbrella discipline that talks about life in the universe, how did we get here, are we alone out there, and my favorite, what is the future of humankind? Because one thing that I've learned studying astrobiology is that we can all make the difference in this wonderful, beautiful world. And that's what we're here to talk about today. How can we make the difference? And our favorite subject is the night sky. And I have here in the studio with me Kay Leder and Richard Hall from Stonehenge Aotearoa and Sam Lesky from the New Zealand Astrobiology Network. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How's the sky tonight? Richard?
Well, of course, we can never tell. Very often, when the weather forecasts are given out on TV and places like that, they always talk about Masterton, but often it can be rainy over here or cloudy over here, and it's perfectly clear where we are. And we get a large number of good clear nights, and when we do, of course, they're absolutely fabulous. But you'll be aware of that because, as you know, Sam here and so on, they do astronomy on Friday and Saturday evenings, isn't it? Yeah.
So we often find that there's pretty large gaps in the clouds, so you can see quite a few things. You just have to know where to look, and you have to be quick.
Yes. And I also noticed last night we just managed to get a glimpse of Jupiter and Saturn, didn't we?
Yep.
As they're gradually moving towards together with that.
Gap in the clouds.
Yeah.
So there's an amazing conjunction coming up.
The closest in 800 years, apparently. That's what I'm told. Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Well, a conjunction is these were all very important things to people in the past. It's when two planets, and of course a planet means wandering star, because as far as our ancestors are concerned, it didn't look any different from stars, ordinary stars, except they moved around the sky. And every now and again they came together. And when they came together, it was seen as a significant event. And what we've got is this conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn is going to be occurring around about the time of the solstice in late December. So, and the two would come together. Sometimes they can come together so closely it appears as if they merge together. But it doesn't happen very often.
So when are we going to see this phenomenon?
When are we going to see it?
Yeah.
Well, as you may know, we always, around about the time of the solstice, put on some special events. So we've got on the Sunday, which is quite close to it.
The 20th.
The 20th. We've got the Legends of the Solstice. And we're going to be talking about all the stories associated with Christmas, which is also all to do with the winter solstice. So it's going to be things like, who was Father Christmas, And these are things that we always, we've grown up with Father Christmas, but who was he? Who really was he? Why did Rudolph have a red nose? It might actually come as a bit of a shock to you. So we'll be talking about all the legends and stories around that. And also then hopefully if the sky is clear, we can begin to see that conjunction, which we were just talking about. And that actually played a significant role, we now know, in some of the stories in the Bible. So the following day, on the Monday, when they actually at their closest, we're going to be doing the Star of Bethlehem.
So this conjunction doesn't just happen in a moment in time. We can see those stars, those planets, Jupiter and Saturn out there in the sky for a longer time, or is it just a one night?
Oh, they gradually come closer and closer. They're going to be at their closest point on the Monday, all right? But Sunday, and even now, you can begin to see them coming together.
So we've been watching Jupiter and Saturn, well, all through the winter and spring, because they're great planets to look at, and they've been really high in the night sky, so they've been perfect viewing positions. You look through the telescope and you can see, these two huge gas giants. And of course, Saturn is amazing to look at. And when people see Saturn for the first time,
they always gasp.
Oh, yeah. They're, wow! And they say other things that you can't repeat on radio, of course. But they're, quite excited by what they're seeing. And of course, when they look at Jupiter, they see the thing that really stands out is the four Galilean moons that pop out.
You can actually glimpse them with a pair of binoculars, but of course, when you're looking
hold them pretty steady.
When you're looking for a telescope, it looks absolutely magnificent. And because we're looking at them on edge on, as it were, every now and again one of the moons will move across the planet, and also its shadow, and you can see like a black spot on Jupiter moving along. So, yeah.
What I always say to people when we're looking at Jupiter is when Galileo first looked at them back in, I think it was 1609, with his very awful telescope by today's standards, but pretty amazing for back then because there wasn't any else to pick from. He saw those Galilean moons, and he was the first person to witness that there were things that orbited something other than the Earth, because back in those days they thought everything orbited the Earth, and it was very very bad for him to say anything other than that. So he sort of looked at in his telescope, saw these moons orbiting Jupiter, and thought, oh, hang on a minute, not everything's orbiting Earth. Those things look like they're orbiting Jupiter. And he got in a lot of trouble for that.
Yeah. But can you imagine what it would have been like to be one of those first people to peer through a telescope and look at things and see things that nobody'd ever seen before?
Well, looking at the moon, he looked at the moon and he saw these mountains and the craters, and no one had seen that before. I mean, they all thought the moon was smooth and a bit blotchy. They didn't realise it had these mountains and craters on it. It was quite staggering, really.
Yeah. And I again, the moon's a bit like Saturn. Often when people have never looked at the moon before, and suddenly they come in and they can see this wonderful terrain of this landscape of craters and mountains. It's absolutely fabulous. And of course, from night to night, your view of the moon is continually changing.
And the night sky here in Wairarapa is very special, isn't it? It's very dark. People think that we only have dark sky around the country in one place, but it turns out that the dark sky in Wairarapa is very dark, is one of the darkest.
Yeah, we're working towards a dark sky reserve, which is a bit like having a reserve out in the sea or a reserve on the land, trying to protect the native birds or the fish there. This time we're protecting the night sky and our view of it. And it's something that I've cared about for a long time. I can remember years ago at Carter Observatory pointing out to the people in charge of the highways that we were buying up the stuff that America didn't want in terms of lighting and sticking it on our highways, when we should be exploiting the magnificent dark skies, which they didn't have. So it's absolutely wonderful to see these dreams come true.
Yeah, I mean, I often say to people here in New Zealand, there's so many things in this wonderful part of the world we have that people just take for granted, And I always remember that when I first came to New Zealand, which was many, I won't say centuries, but decades ago. But when I first came there, and I lived up north in near Whangarei, and the coastline along there is absolutely fabulous. And I can remember going down to this place called Whale Bay, and you went down this little pathway through these rocks, and you ended up on the beach with trees hanging over the beach, and it was like a paradise. And when I came back to work the following day, I was talking to about it, and I said I was the only person there. And the guy looked at me and said, he said, did you expect somebody else to be there? You see, but I'd come from England, and I tell you what, near London, and if it was a nice day, you'd say, let's go down to the beach, and a million other people will think exactly the same thing. And as I say, having these things around us, that beautiful night sky, 80% of people in the world have never seen the Milky Way. And it's something special we have down here. We do.
Well, that lack of people is really interesting. I remember once going to Riversdale Beach and seeing there was a couple of other people on the beach, and went home because I thought it was a bit crowded.
Well, that's right, yeah. It's just a view of the world that we get from where we are. But what New Zealanders don't realise is just how privileged we are to have this wonderful terrain all around us. And of course, I think a lot of people also notice with this COVID-19 coming through, the fact that everybody else is more than 2,000 kilometres away is actually quite handy, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Let's listen to some amazing music from the amazing Rian Sheehan, who's a New Zealand composer, and he does his music so that we almost feel like we're there outside looking at the beautiful night sky. His music is very spacey.
here as it went overhead. There were, like I described before, several pieces, perhaps 5 large fragments, which in front of my eyes fell apart into several more fragments. And it was several minutes, not sure exactly how many minutes before the sonic booms should be heard, but they were quite distinct and loud. So that happening at the same time as the thunderstorm in the background is quite a show.
We talked about the night sky and how amazing it is, and what are we doing when it's cloudy? Sometimes it's cloudy here in Wairarapa. And we actually have a very exciting program that we found out about this year, and we've brought here to New Zealand, and we're implementing in our activities. And this program is a online astronomy experience. It's called SLU. And SLU stands for, it's a jargon word. It means when you move the telescope from one side to the other, we call that movement slewing. And so SLU made a play of words, and this program is called Moving the Telescope from One Side to Another, slewing. And SLU is a program, is an online program that uses telescopes from around the world, from Chile and from the Canary Islands. They have these giant telescopes there that are looking at the night sky, and we can look at the night sky from our desk during the day and do all sorts of wonderful things. And I'll get Sam to describe a little bit more of what SLU does.
Well, it's quite an exciting program. It was funded by the US's National Science Foundation, and it's been in operation for a few years now, and they have recently opened a site in Chile, so they have two major sites around the world, one in the Canary Islands, which is just off Africa in the Atlantic Ocean, and the other one in Chile, not far from Santiago. So they have the northern sky really well covered and the southern sky really well covered, which is fantastic. So when it's cloudy, as occasionally it is here, like today, you can jump on SLU and you can look at the telescopes in the Canary Islands and Chile. Obviously it's got to be dark and they've got to be open and the weather's got to be good where they are, but you can look at these telescopes live and you can see what they're pointing at. And of course, you can also task them yourself. So you can go on and you can decide you might want to look at a galaxy. You might want to look at Andromeda Galaxy in the northern hemisphere, for example. So you can type that in and book a slot on the telescope in the Canary Islands, and then you'll get a lovely picture of Andromeda Galaxy. Now it's up to you which telescope you select, and you've got to make sure that the object is in the right part of the sky, and it's not too low on the horizon, and all these things that astronomers worry about to get nice pictures. Or you can just browse what the telescopes are looking at, so you can jump from one telescope to the next and have a look. Also in the Canary Islands they have a solar telescope, so in the evening here in New Zealand, if you want to see what the sun's up to long after it's gone to bed, you can check out what they're seeing on the other side of the world and what the sun's up to. So it's quite amazing. You can look at these photos, you can capture them, you can download them, and you can build quite a collection of.
You've been taking quite a lot of really interesting photographs recently of the sun, haven't you? There's quite a bit of activity beginning to build on it.
Yeah, and with the SLU telescopes, you can see, you can see that all day and all night as well. So if you have your own telescope during the day here, you can look at that, and of course you can look at the SLU one overnight. But what's quite cool with the SLU stuff is they have gamified using these telescopes. So you can go do these quests and things, and it's kind of a tricky way of getting you to learn a little bit about astronomy in the night sky and a bit of science while you're using these telescopes, which is pretty cool. There's one that teaches the laws of planetary motion, which is pretty cool if you're studying that or if you're interested in that. And then there's other ones which take you through like how Pluto was discovered. So you follow through these things. They're called quests, and you can you take a couple of pictures of the night sky where Pluto is, and then you compare them, just like the guy who discovered Clive, what was his name? Clive somebody, can't remember now. Tombro, yeah.
It sounds like that anyway.
Yeah. So what he did is he took a picture of the night sky, well, a number of pictures, night after night after night, and he compared them to see what was moving. Of course, the stars don't move much. They move over thousands of years, but generally they don't move a whole lot. But planets and asteroids and things move quite quickly. So if you can compare two photos taken of the same bit of sky on subsequent nights, then you'll see something move, and that's how he found Pluto. So you can replicate the work that he did for that, which is kind of cool.
I think it's amazing that astronomy now has evolved so much that instead of looking through a telescope, which is what we all think of an astronomer, someone who does that kind of work during nighttime, most of the work is done with a computer, and that's what SLU is trying to bring into the mainstream, that accessibility that everybody out there in the world, whether we can afford to buy thousands of dollars telescopes because they're quite expensive, we can still afford to turn a computer on and go online and use these telescopes and just look at the night sky. If you just take pictures of the night sky and that's the only thing you do, it's still an amazing experience. And we actually we have a little competition going on between the two of us, and we earn points. We do all these quests, and I think it's just accessibility is putting things into the big picture. When you take one of those SLU pictures and you look at all those galaxies and stars that are formed so many thousands, millions of thousands of light years away from us, and it's just mind-blowing. And you're thinking, this is where we came from. We're made of stardust. At some point in our existence as atoms and molecules, we were right there in space. In a molecular cloud like the one we're photographing with these telescopes. And I think for me that's what makes it so exciting, to be able to tell people how we're made of stardust, how we're all coming from the same place. Even water. There was a kid who was asking a few months ago, where does water come from? Where does water come from, Sam?
From the tap.
From the river.
Well, water's really interesting, isn't it? Because it's it's on Earth and we take it for granted. The ocean's full of it and the rivers are full of it, and they're not as clean as we probably would like them to be. But that water's been here a heck of a long time. And it got here by things crashing into the Earth, like asteroids and comets and things. And a little bit of it arrived here when the Earth formed. So the water that we've got is the same water that's been here 4.5 billion years, which is quite staggering, really. So next time you're drinking that glass of water, think about that. That's a 4.5 billion year old glass of water.
It also appears to be fundamental to life, doesn't it? You know?
Oh yeah, well, it's fundamental to our life.
Yeah.
Let's take another music break and...
But before you do,
Yes?
I just want to bring in a health and safety thing. Because earlier on we were talking about looking at the sun.
Yeah.
And we do that out at Stonehenge and so on. But we use special equipment. Do not look at the sun through a telescope, right? Unless you're with someone who knows what they're doing, because otherwise it will be the very last thing you ever look at.
Oh,
right?
Well, don't even look at it, just
Don't
with
even
the
look
naked
at it.
eye. Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
I don't think we can tell this enough to people to not
Yeah.
look at the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
thank you for
But
that.
we've got
Very
the
good
gear
reminder.
so you can, you see.
We
Yeah.
can with special equipment. Even with solar glasses that are marketed as solar glasses, you have to be very careful because sometimes they're punctured. So you have to check them to make sure they're
I'd stay
safe.
clear of them.
Well, Sam would stay clear of them, yeah. If he would, I would too. All right.
All began more than a quarter of a century ago. 27 years, if I reckon correctly.
We only have a couple of minutes left until the end of this time slot. Is there anything else we need to talk about in a very, very quick time?
Well, I think that we've been talking about the stars, and to remind people that we out at Stonehenge every Friday and Saturday evening. You've got the opportunity of being taken on a tour around the sky and then looking through large telescopes and that. So don't miss that opportunity, especially when we've got some really special things happening right now. Yeah.
Are you going to do some extra sessions perhaps over the Christmas period?
Yeah, well, we're going to be open over Christmas every night except Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. We're going to take those 2 evenings off, probably look at the telescopes ourselves. But the rest of the time from that week before Christmas through to I think about the 6th of January, we'll be doing astronomy every evening, making the most of the summer weather.
That's right, yeah. No, and do. And also remember that every season's got its own stars. So this is your opportunity to see the summer stars. As the year goes on, there's going to be new things coming into the sky all the time.
Well, that is fantastic. And from all of us here, we wish everybody clear skies so that they can always see the stars and always, always remember that we're made from the same stardust as these beautiful stars are.
I remember way back in the day, walking through my